He's written a book called The Miracle Morning. The book changed my life. It's in over 37 languages. The book has sold over 3 million copies.
My business started to crash. I lost my house. I was living on credit cards. And I realized I need to create a personal development ritual that enables me to become the person that I need to be. How you start your day sets the tone, the context, and the direction for the rest of the day. In order for you to overcome the self-doubt and the lack of motivation and the rejection and all of that, you gotta have a mission that's bigger than yourself. Choose to find purpose in your pain that enables you to rise above it and keep moving forward so that you can serve humanity at a higher level.
How many of you have heard Hal Elrod speak? Give some hearts on the emoji dashboard if you've heard him speak. Maybe you've heard the podcast interview or multiple podcast interviews that we've done on the podcast. So if you have, light up the wall in the background here. I love it. And now I'm going to say a couple things about Hal, and then we're going to bring him on. So Hal, if you've never heard of him, he's written a book called The Miracle Morning. The book changed my life, absolutely changed my life. It's in over 37 languages. The book has sold over 3 million copies, if you can believe that. Pretty unbelievable. One of the most successful self-published books of all time. He's a keynote speaker, success coach. He's the host of a podcast called the Achieve Your Goals podcast. Hal is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met in my life. And I do not say that lightly. In fact, I don't know, I could probably count on one hand how many people I've made a comment like that about, and Hal is that guy. He was in a near-fatal car accident with a drunk driver at age 20. He was killed. He was pronounced dead for 6 minutes, told he'd never walk again. And then he defied the odds and ran a 52-mile ultra marathon. Okay? Then later in life, in 2016, he overcame a rare cancer diagnosis, was given 30% odds to even live, overcame it. Like, just the guy, he's one of the first people to ever believe in me. And he's one of the first people that ever spoke on his stage. When I bought out my business partner, you guys have probably heard me tell this story. Well, you know, I borrowed money from 3 people, my parents, my brother, and Hal Elrod. And just like salt of the earth guy, every time I'm around him, I'm fired up. So let's give a warm Author Advantage Live welcome to Mr. Hal Elrod.
Chandler Bull.
Now, he's got the hat that says Top Dad. Fun fact, Hal just threw his daughter a big birthday party last night and then carved out time to be here with you guys. That's how important it is. So let's give another round of applause and just appreciation for him making this a priority and being here. Just means the world to me. So Hal, why don't you tell people, I know this is kind of like an old news question, but this story never gets old for me. What inspired you writing The Miracle Morning? Like what kicked off writing that book, and why books in general?
So before I answer that, I'm going to say 2 things. Number one, Chandler, you're one of the most inspiring people that I know. I mean, I told you, like watching you I met you when you were 20 and you were like running coffees at an event in Canada to now building this incredible business and the impact you're making and making people's dreams come true. So you are one of the most inspiring people that I know. And my other comment or question is, you said I'm on the top 5. Who are the other 4, dude? I want to know my competition. I want to. No, just kidding. So yeah, man, thank you for having me, dude. I love you. You're one of my favorite people, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and everybody in the audience.
Yeah. So why the book? Why did you decide to write The Miracle Morning? Why books in general? I mean, you're one of the most successful self-published authors ever. Why the book?
I never intended to write that book, meaning it wasn't like I want to write a book and let me see what a good topic would be and what's there a market for. I want to be an author. It was very organic. In 2008, the United States economy crashed. I'm sure many of you were there. And my business crashed with it. I was a coach at the time. I had a business that was taken off. And all of a sudden, my business started to crash. And after 6 months of a downward spiral where I lost my house, I was living on credit cards, a good friend of mine who's a friend of Chandler's, John Berghoff, he said, I said, John, I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. And he said, listen to this Jim Rohn audio. I said, okay. And the Jim Rohn audio, there was a quote that changed my life, and it set the tone for Miracle Morning. He said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development. And I realized I need to create a personal development ritual that enables me to become the person that I need to be to create the success that I want in my life. And that is where the Miracle Morning was born. Essentially, it was 6 of the most timeless practices, and I performed them in my own life. And in 2 months, I doubled my income at the height of the Great Recession. And I decided to run a 52-mile ultra marathon, even though I had never run before. And I told my wife, sweetheart, this morning routine has changed our life so fast, it feels like a miracle. And she goes, it's your miracle morning, sweetie. I said, I like that miracle morning. And so long story short, I felt like it was a calling. Like, this practice changed my life. I taught it to my coaching clients. It changed their lives. And I thought, I have a responsibility. I have a calling from God, if you will, to share this practice with as many people as I possibly can. And so that's what inspired the book. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't because I wanted to be an author. It was because I felt I had a responsibility to share the practice that had changed my life with as many people as I possibly could.
That's great. Anyone here relate to that? I feel like that was them with their book, right? A lot of hands going up. I love that. So how, I know I've shared this with you before, but I'll share this with everyone here. This book, The Miracle Morning, it changed my life. When I dropped out of school, it's kind of funny. They say if you need something done, you give it to a busy person, right? Because you've got structure. And so I thought, hey, I've got school and all this stuff, and I was extremely productive. And I thought, as soon as I drop out, then I'm going to get more productive because I'm going to have more time. But what actually happened is I had no structure. And without structure, it's chaos, right? And so then I'm trying to get stuff done, and my days would just go off the rails, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is not working. And I remember reading the book, The Miracle Morning, and I said, all right, I'm going to implement this Miracle Morning. And I've done it. It's my keystone habit. It is the greatest habit that I have in my life. And I know that when I do that Miracle Morning, my day's going to be good, and when I don't, it's not going to be. And so, it's with 99% or greater consistency, probably more like 99.9%. If it's a work day, I'm doing it. It's a morning routine, and then I'm doing it. I've done it ever since, and it totally changed my life and my trajectory. And over that year, that's the first breakout year when we hit $1 million in sales, and I just snowballed from there. So can you break down what are the savers that are part of the Miracle Morning, and why do people need a Miracle Morning, all that stuff?
Yeah, so first I'll answer why do they need a Miracle Morning. I wasn't a morning person when I decided to try this. And what I realized is that how you start your day sets the tone, the context, and the direction for the rest of the day. So when you win the morning, essentially you set yourself up to win the day. You put yourself in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state first thing in the morning. And then you're poised and you're prepared to really maximize the day, which is why Chandler and me and many others do it, 99.9% of the time. The savers are the 6 practices. And the way that began is I just Googled, what do the world's most successful people do for personal development? And I was looking for one practice. What's the number one thing I could do to start my day in the most effective possible way? And after I searched, there was this list of 6. It was meditation, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling. And I thought, well, which of these is the best? And there was no clear winner. And I felt like it was God whispered to me. And it's like, hey, do all of them. Why don't you wake up tomorrow a little bit earlier and do the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices that the world's most successful people have sworn by for centuries? And I woke up the next morning, did all 6. And I went from being depressed and living in scarcity and fear as my business was declining and my debt was growing. That very first morning, I went, oh, wow. If I start every day like this with this much clarity and energy and focus and motivation and productivity, it's only a matter of time before I turn my life around. And those 6 practices are known by the acronym that Chandler just mentioned, SAVERS. So meditation became silence. That's the first S in SAVERS. In fact, I actually have it written out right here. There you go. So the S in SAVERS is for silence. The A is for affirmations. The V is for visualization. The E is for exercise. The R is for reading, and then journaling would have made the acronym awkward. So thanks to the thesaurus, I got scribing. But any one of those, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he's a big fan of Miracle Morning. He's read the book at least 3 times that I'm aware of, and he practices it on a daily basis. And he had me on his radio show, Rich Dad Radio. And he said it better than I ever had. He said, Hal, he said, you named the book correctly. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, any one of the savers will change a person's life for the better. He said, but what I found is when you combine all 6 of those ancient timeless practices, he said, which I had never met anyone he said, I've been in personal growth for 30 some years. He said, I've never met anyone that did all 6 of the practices, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at the most. But he said, I believe that when you combine all 6 of those life-changing practices, you experience miracles in your life. And he said, I've only done it for a few months, and I already have miracles in my health, in my business, and in my marriage, in my relationship. So any one of the savers will change your life or save your life, but all 6 of them when combined every morning. And you can do it in 30 minutes or 60 minutes, or there's even a chapter, the new edition of the Miracle Morning, there's a chapter called the 6-Minute Miracle Morning. So you can do it in a very shortened period of time. And there's a Miracle Morning app. You can download the app and click play. It'll kind of walk you through it for you. So it's a very flexible, scalable ritual that isn't rigid. You don't have to do all 6 savers every day. You don't have to do them in any particular order. It doesn't have to be done at 5 a.m., right? It's a very customizable way to start your day in an optimal state.
I love that. That's great. And guys, any of you taking the Rough Draft Challenge, working on your rough draft right now? Okay, well, if you integrate the Miracle Morning, that's the beautiful thing. The writing piece or the scribing piece, you can work on your book, right? And we've helped hundreds of people in the Miracle Morning community get their books done, and they're my favorite people to work with because we just say, all right, we'll just integrate this into your Miracle Morning. And those people automatically start making progress. So that's awesome. I see Dale says, just bought the book, The Miracle Morning, look forward to implementing it. Yeah, if you guys haven't grabbed a copy of the book, get a copy. It'll change your life. Obviously, you've got there's a documentary on it, the Miracle Morning movie, there's the app, there's a lot of really great resources. And that's kind of a good jumping off point. I want to go 2 parts here. I want to talk launch. So how did you launch and ultimately get traction with the book? And then I want to talk Beyond the Bestseller and kind of the whole Miracle Morning movement that you've created. So tell me and tell us, Hal, about the launch. And how long did it take you to get to 1 million copies? Because I think a lot of people just think to get 1 million copies, you must have sold hundreds of thousands of copies in your launch, and it just was so amazing, and then whatever. Tell us about that story and that journey.
Yeah, I love the story because when I wanted to write the Miracle Morning, it was, as I was writing it, and you may have experienced this if you have a book or as you're writing the book, which is imposter syndrome, which is fear of failure. As I was writing the Miracle Morning, I thought, how am I going to convince people to overcome a lifetime of a limiting belief that says, I'm not a morning person? That's a deeply rooted limiting belief that people have evidence for, right? Like I've spent my whole life, I hate waking up in the morning. I struggle to get out of bed. I hit the snooze button. I thought, how am I going to help people overcome that? And that's actually an important bonus lesson here for y'all is to really, as you're writing your book, don't just tell them what to do. Think through every objection that they're going to have silently to themselves. Every objection, every fear, every insecurity. What the author says makes sense, but I'm not capable. I'm not disciplined. I've never done this before. In my case, I'm not a morning person. So because I was so concerned that I would not be able to help people overcome the inertia, the resistance, the limiting belief, I'm not a morning person, I focused on holding people's hand every step of the way. And through my editing and even writing, it was like, okay, after every paragraph, even sometimes every sentence, it was like, okay, after they read this paragraph, when I made blank point, what are their doubts going to be? What are their objections going to be? What are they going to argue with? And then I would make sure I was addressing everything throughout the book. And I think that's the only reason that my book is successful as successful as it was, or the primary reason, is because I held people's hands mentally and emotionally from, I'm not a morning person, I don't think this will work for me, I don't have any discipline, to the end of like, okay, I'm going to try it, to I'm going to commit for 30 days so it becomes a lifelong habit. So that's an important bonus lesson. Now, the launch, I believed, again, I had a responsibility to do everything in my power to achieve the goal of impacting 1 million people. That was my mission that I put in writing, was change 1 million lives one morning at a time, which meant sell 1 million copies of this book. Now, keep in mind, in 2012, when it published, I was an unknown author. I didn't have an audience. I didn't have a big social media following. Like, I was launching, like probably many of you, to, like, I don't have a following to launch to, but I was committed. And that may be the most important part of your author journey, is if you're committed to reaching 1 million people, or 100,000 people, or 10,000 people, or whatever it is for you, whatever you're committed to, that's what you're going to generate in your life, as long as the commitment is unwavering. And so to launch the book, I formed a launch team, because I was looking at what other successful authors had done. So I formed a launch team. I think we had, I don't remember how many people on it, maybe 50 people on the launch team. It was all my friends and family and colleagues and you name it. And so they helped me to promote the book on social media. I was on there every day on social. I was doing all the guerrilla tactics, all the, I didn't have a team. I didn't have an assistant. It was just me, which is important to understand as well. I also decided I would create pre-orders. So I came up with a bunch of bonuses. I offered a free ticket to a live event that I didn't have yet. I just thought, okay, I'm going to offer a ticket to a live event if you buy X amount of books. So I had all these levels. If you bought 20 books, you got one bonus. And then if you bought 50, you got a higher bonus plus the original. If you bought 100 copies, and I went all the way up to, like, if you bought, I think it was the highest level was 300 copies, maybe 500. And I would speak for you for free. Now, at that time, I had only been paid to speak like once, but I set my speaking fee my speaking fee is, $5,000, and I will waive it for you, right? Please don't ask me if I've ever gotten paid that, because that'll be embarrassing. Right, but you just, you get creative. And so I created all these irresistible bonuses, and then guess what? I got on the phone, and I called over 100 people. Every person I had ever worked with at my former company. I got lists from a colleague of all of the division managers at it was Cutco was the company I worked at. I called everybody. And I literally sat there with a printed out, this was like, Google Sheets didn't exist. I had made in Microsoft Office, I made a spreadsheet, and I hand wrote, this person, I called on this date, left a message. They called me back. They want to order 20 books, right? So I pre-sold, I'm trying to remember the number. I think it was 5,000 copies. I think it was 5,000 copies that I pre-sold. I took 6 months and hundreds of phone calls and emails, and I pre-sold 5,000 copies. We literally entered those in one person at a time. I had my friends and family help me do that over the course of a week when the launch came out. And then I sold 1,000 copies on Amazon. Let me zoom out and go and move forward. My goal was to sell 1 million copies for the year. I had a decent launch, right? We hit number 6 on Amazon, and that was back, those numbers wouldn't hit number 6 today, but back then they hit number 6. So it was a good launch. However, because I had no audience and I called in every favor that I had for those pre-orders and to order on Amazon, as soon as that launch month was over, my sales dropped from 5,000 that first month down to 700. And then down to 300, and then down to 150 the month after that. So if you look at my sales graph, good launch, and then it just dropped off. And most authors I know, they focus on something else at that point, but I was committed to do everything in my power to sell 1 million copies that year. So I started reaching out to podcasters that I didn't know, and I emailed hundreds of podcasters through their website. It was my full-time job. I got on 152 podcasts that year. I then hired a PR person with money I didn't have because I believed in my mission. I put it on a credit card, and I got on 13 morning TV shows, which, by the way, sold almost very few books. I did everything in my power to sell 1 million copies that year. Remember, I sold 5,000 copies in the first month. By the end of that year, I fell short of my goal of 1 million. I fell short of it by 987,000 copies. So I sold 5,000 books month one and 8,000 books over the next 11 and a half months or 11 months. And I was 987,000 copies short of my goal, right? That's a 98.7% failure rate. Now, was I discouraged? Absolutely. But I was committed. I felt like it was my responsibility, a calling from God, that I had to get the Miracle Morning in the hands of 1 million people. So I dusted myself off. Now, and honestly, I did the math. I go, okay, 13,000 copies divided by, or 1 million divided by 13,000 copies. It was going to take me like 76 years, at which time I would have been 110 years old to reach the goal. And I just committed. I don't care if it takes me 76 years. My life's work is to share this message. And it took 6 years to sell 1 million copies. And the last thing I want to say, and I'll turn it over to you, Chandler, for more questions. This is one of the most important lessons that I can share with you today. That whatever your goals are in your life, most people give up because they don't go according to plan. They don't happen as fast as we want them to. So we throw in the towel somewhere along the way because we're discouraged, or we lose motivation because results aren't happening as fast as they want us to, as we want them to. Here's what I learned. 6 years later, when I finally sold 1 million copies of The Miracle Morning, I looked back in hindsight and I went, oh, it couldn't have happened in year one, because I had to meet that person in year two that led to the introduction, that led to the opportunity in year three, that led to the foreign publishing deal in year four, that led to this. It was looking back, like Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so here's the lesson. If you write anything down, write this down. When you finally get to the point you've been working so hard for, when you finally get to the point that you've been working so hard for so long, you almost never wish it would have happened any sooner. You look back and you go, oh, the timing was perfect. It had to take 6 years or 10 years or 4 or whatever. So when you get to the point you've been working so hard for so long, I forgot how I ended that, but the timing is always perfect. That's how you can
That's
say it.
great.
Timing is always perfect. You never wish it would happen any sooner. That's what I said.
Yeah, man, I got chills over here. That's incredible. Such an inspiring story. People are lighting up the chat. This is resonating with so many people. And we even got a nomination for your next book, Hal, called The Morning Evening. Or sorry, The Miracle. Oh gosh, I totally butchered that. The Miracle Evening. The Miracle Evening.
Yep.
All right. You got a concept you teach, Hal, called Beyond the Bestseller, and really like turning a book into a movement.
Yeah.
What are the core elements of that? What do you view that as, and how have you done that with the Miracle Morning movement?
You just reminded me. I wrote the book Beyond the Bestseller in 2016, and I never published it because I got cancer. I keep forgetting I need to publish that book. In fact, Chandler and I should co-author that book, I think.
Let's go.
So here's the premise of that book, is that far too much emphasis is put on the idea of becoming a best-selling author. Is there value in it? Absolutely. However, I would ask you as an author, what matters most to you? What are the most important objectives of you writing a book? And I believe there are two. Number one is impact. You want to make an impact. You want to help people. And number two is income. You want to generate income from your book. Now, many people hacked the system to get on a bestseller list. You can buy a bunch of books. There's a lot of different tricks that you can do. However, I've gone onto many authors' books on Amazon who hit even the New York Times bestseller list, and many of them spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or high tens of thousands of dollars to get onto that list because they mistakenly think that that's the most important thing is being a New York Times bestselling author. And then you go onto their Amazon ranking a month or two later, and you check their ranking. And they've dropped from being ranked in the top 1,000 Now they're ranked, 78,000 on Amazon or 150,000 on Amazon. And here's my point, is they got that flash in the pan of being a New York Times bestselling author. And putting that in your bio, yes, that definitely can give you credibility because it is perceived in the real world by normal people, right? As like, oh, you're a New York Times bestselling author. That's amazing. So there's value to it, yes. But my point is this. If we go back to the primary two outcomes I believe are most important for authors, impact and creating a meaningful, lasting impact for as many people as we possibly can, and income, creating a sustainable, long-term income from our book because it's continuing to impact people and generate passive recurring income for us. You look at those best-selling books that are now, the ranking shows, oh, you're not impacting very many lives anymore, and you're not making very much money anymore. So for me, that wasn't good enough. I didn't want to be, in fact, I'm still not a New York Times bestselling author, and if that ever comes my way, okay. But to me, it's about how do you create a lasting impact and a lasting income that go far beyond your bestseller status.
So good. And what are some of the ways that you feel like you do that or people can do that? I know you mentioned earlier kind of habit change, and you mentioned a couple other kind of pieces that are part of that. Anything else that our folks can be intentional about if they want to build beyond the bestseller?
Yeah, I mean, it's really sustained effort, extraordinary effort. I gave a speech. I actually gave the Beyond the Bestseller speech at a conference once. And I had an author come up to me afterwards, and he said, Hal, man, that graph you showed me was a game changer. Now, the graph I showed him was the Miracle Morning book sales, where I had that spike in the beginning, right? And then it was this long journey of not many sales. And finally, it hit the tipping point and started to go up. And I talked about, 6 years to reach 1 million books. And the fact that my full-time job, if part-time to full-time, depending on the week, is promoting the Miracle Morning in every possible way that I can. And it's getting on podcasts, it's giving speeches, it's promoting it on social media, whatever I can do. And he said, wow, I promoted my book for a couple of months. And he said, and then it stopped selling. It wasn't selling very many copies. So I decided I would focus on writing my next book and focusing on the other areas of my business. He said, hearing your story and seeing that graph that shows how long it took you to get your sales to, 100,000, let alone 1 million. He said, it made me wonder, what could I have done with my first book that I really believe in? He said, if I would have just kept promoting it like you did. So Chandler, that's the most important thing. It's that you commit to putting forth consistent effort over an extended period of time. And I think the best way to do it is pick a number. Doesn't have to be 1 million. It could be 10,000. And then say, I'm committed to giving it everything in my power consistently every day, and make it simple. I will do one thing every day, or I will spend 1 hour every day once the book's published to figure out how to reach those 10,000 people. And once you get to 10,000, then you can, and once you get there, you'll have more Amazon reviews of people telling you your book changed their life. And you go, okay, now I'm going to up it to 100,000, or now I'm going to up it to 1 million. So when you commit to a specific outcome and then commit to do one thing every day that moves you toward that outcome for as long as it takes. I remember when my Miracle Morning, my first year, and I was 98.7% short of the goal. I remember thinking maybe it'll take me 30 years to reach 1 million people, but I'm going to give it, I'll commit for the next 30 years. It's not a secret, right? Like so I have to work consistently over an extended period of time. Yes, that's exactly what you have to do. And you can't let your short-term results, like my friend, that author, he let his short-term results determine whether or not he continued promoting the book. And he stopped promoting it because he wasn't selling many copies. You have to let your commitment to impact and income over the long haul dictate your daily actions.
So good. So good. I'll never forget one of the this just seared into my memory, an impactful moment that I had with Hal, which is we're sitting in Cafe Gratitude, San Diego, one of Hal's favorite spots there. and we're having this, I think, breakfast or something. The waiter comes up and asks about what Hal does, and we get into the Miracle Morning, and Hal's like, hold on, and runs outside, goes in the trunk of his car, grabs a copy of the Miracle Morning, comes back in, gives it to the waiter. And it's such a simple thing, an obvious thing, but it broke my brain. I'm like, oh, no wonder this guy sells so many copies, is he's got a copy of his book everywhere he goes. And so can you maybe speak to that, Hal? Where like, I feel like there's so many times that I've seen that. And since then, I'm like, I never leave home without it. It's, I've got it, I got at least one copy in my backpack if I'm traveling. I got it in my car. I got it in the office. I got it like, if I'm going to a mastermind, I'm bringing books and I'm giving a copy to every single person. It's just like, you totally changed my mindset on that, where anywhere I go, I'm bringing books for the people I'm interacting with, or I at least have it in case it comes up. Why did you start doing that? When did you start doing that? Maybe what's one fun or funny experience that's happened with you carrying books places and giving them to people?
Yeah, and I love that. Well, it's funny because my favorite restaurant in San Diego is Cafe Gratitude. My favorite restaurant in Austin, Texas is The Well. And me and my wife and my daughter were at The Well like a week or so ago. And I've been meaning to do this forever, but I don't remember. I know, like, I go in there all the time and they all know me and I can't remember their name, like half of their names, right? Like I remember a few names, but so I've always go, man, I got to give them books, but I'm kind of embarrassed to be like, what's your name again? And they're like, you don't know my name? We've known each other for 6 months, right? So the other day I was in there and I was like, all right, I'm going to get a copy of my book for my waitress, this young gal, Kinsey. She's my waitress all the time. I know her name well. And I go to my car and there's like 10 people there with, wait staff, and I go, forget it. I don't care if I don't know their names. Like, while I'm letting that stop me from potentially changing their life. Maybe one of the people's life who I don't know the name needs the book the most. Get out of my own way. So I went to the trunk of the car. I brought in 10 books and I went to the counter. I said, hey, y'all, I've been meaning to do this for like 6 months, probably a year. I don't know why I waited so long, but I wrote this book and none of them knew I was an author. Nobody knew that. And I said, I wrote this book and I'm going to give you all a copy. This is my life's work and it changed my life and I hope it can help you. And I was like, tell me your name again. And I just signed all the books. And it was amazing, by the way. They were like, what? You wrote a book? And then some of them were like, Mel Robbins gave you a testimonial. I love Robin Sharma. It was funny. There were 2 huge fans of the top 2 people of the endorsements on the back of the book. 2 of the gals were huge fans. So that was a fun experience recently. And then I went back in there and I'm like, hey, did you guys start reading the book? They're like, we're doing a book club. And so super awesome. So that's a fun recent story. Why did I start doing that? I don't know if this is why, but what came up for me when you asked that, Chandler, is too short. Now, some of you may be too young or too old to know who Too Short is, but Too Short is a gangster rapper from the 90s. And Too Short got his start by giving out CDs out of his trunk for free to every person that he could, and eventually started selling them out of the trunk. I was like, I'm gonna be like Too Short, right? That's my 90s hip hop influence. I'm gonna be like Too Short. I'm gonna give books out of my trunk. So I always have a box of books in my trunk and I give them out. And by the way, this is key. When I wrote The Miracle Morning and I self-published it in 2012, I created a spreadsheet that said, give away 1,000 copies on my journey to 1 million. So I had a spreadsheet I set a goal to sell 1 million, but to give away 1,000. And so every time I gave away books, I would make a note on my phone on my spreadsheet, and I ended up and sometimes I would meet somebody in an interview, podcast, I would send them a book. And so I ended up giving away over 1,000 books. I think it was the first year that the book came out. So I gave away, they probably cost me $3 a piece. So I invested 3,000 books, gave away, or 3,000 bucks, gave away 3,000 books. Something else that I do to this day, whenever I send a book to somebody, and my family just went to family camp a couple weeks ago. And it was this Christian family camp. It was amazing with other families. And the counselors were all college students. And they poured into my daughter and my son. They were so great. And so 3 of them were, my daughter had a counselor, my son had a counselor, and our family had a counselor for the 3 of us. during these family devotionals. And so I got all 3 of their cell phone numbers and their addresses. And so I just signed books for them. But what I do is whenever I send out a book, I always send out 2 copies. So I always sign 1 book for the person I'm sending the book to. And then I always sign a second book. But here's a little trick I got from Michael Mayer, who is the co-author of the Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents. He did this when he sent me a book, and I go, oh, that's brilliant. So I sign 1 book to the person, and then the other book, I'll write, welcome to the Miracle Morning, and then I sign it from me, and I put P.S. I hope you enjoy this special gift from, and I write the person's name that I'm sending the 2 books to. So think about how cool that is, that the author signed the book, but he signed it from him and that person. So that person looks amazing now. They're like, hey, I got you an autographed book, and it even, right, and it's from Hal and it's from me, right? So here you go.
Ah, that's cool.
So that now ensures, think about this, they're getting a copy of your book, so hopefully they're going to read it. It's autographed. They got it from the author. The likelihood of them reading the book is much higher. But if they're giving it to a friend, now there's like an added level of accountability to read the book because now their friend's got a copy and their friend might ask them about it. So I highly recommend never give away 1 book, always give away 2. And Chandler, to your point, I've always got at least 1 book with me, if not 2 when I travel. And a lot of times I'll be in an Uber and the Uber driver's telling me how they're struggling and they just lost their mom or something. And I'm like, hey, I always have one. I'm an author. I have a book with me, and I always feel like God brings the right person into my life that needs this book, and I think you might be that person. And then I give them a copy, and and I've had people in tears, and the whole thing. So
that's really cool. That's really cool. And what really sticks out to me about that is it personalizes it. Because I don't know if any of you guys can resonate with this. It's like when you're just doing everything online and digitally, you never get to see. That's the weird thing about being an author, right? Is you rarely, if ever, see someone reading your book. So the product that you work so hard to create, you don't get to see the person experiencing it. You might get to see a review or something. So it's this weird kind of ethereal disconnect with your actual readers. And that's what I love about doing it in person, is because you're actually seeing the physical book in someone's hands. And I'll never forget when I was going out looking at houses with my realtor, and we were looking at this house, and we found out the neighbor was also selling the house, so she's over there trying to work a deal and she's like, all right, I'll bring Chandler over here. And so she brings me over and introduces me, and they're like, oh, you're the author. And it was just kind of this weird moment where I would never introduce myself as an author, but she did.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're like, oh my gosh, we would love to tell someone we sold our home to an author. And it's just like this thing you don't even think about. And then, I give them a book and sign the book and whatever. And it's just like, it makes it feel so much more real. So it's so fun.
Chandler, I have a story I have to tell you about that. I just remembered. So the house the house that we live in now in Texas, we bought it when the market was on fire. So the first day we looked at it the first day it came out, and there were 5 offers, right? So day 1, 5 offers. This was in 2021. So it was really hard to get the house, right? Like, you're competing with the highest bidder or whatever. So we're here, and the realtor goes, right when the realtor shows up, she goes, are you Hal Elrod that wrote The Miracle Morning? And she's saying this in front of the person selling the house. I said, yeah. She goes, oh my God, your book changed my life. I read, and she just starts going on and on in front of the person selling the house. And the person selling the house goes, oh, wait, you're an author? And she's like, oh my gosh. And so the realtor goes, can I get my picture with you? So again, keep in mind, me and my wife are like, we want this house. How are we going to be the person they pick out of 5 offers, right? So the realtor goes, can I get my picture with you? So I take my picture with the realtor. And then the seller of the house goes, can I get my picture with you too? I'm like, oh man. I go, yes. And let me run to the car. I'm going to give you I'm going to give both of you a signed copy of my book. Like, come on. And of course we got the house. So that's the author advantage, by the way.
Boom! Stuck the landing, the author advantage. Wow. I thought you were about to say, I'll take my picture with you if you choose our offer. You got a live hostage. All right, a couple final questions, and I want to take a couple questions from the audience. You wrote a book called The Miracle Equation. I think it's just such a powerful concept. I find myself referencing it often. What is the miracle equation, and how can people use it to grow their businesses, sell more books, all that stuff?
Yeah, the miracle equation is a concept I created a decade before the Miracle Morning was even an idea. But then I always wanted to write a book about it. So after the Miracle Morning took off, I did the book on the miracle equation. And I'll say this, it's deceptively simple in its explanation, but it's extraordinarily rare in its execution. And here's what I mean. And actually, let me set it up with one more statement, which is if you study the world's most successful people, including Mr. Chandler Bolt, you find that these are the two decisions. The miracle equation is made up of two decisions. And if you study the world's most successful people, you find that these are the two decisions that they make over and over and over that enable them to be successful. I call it the miracle equation because these two decisions enable you to create results, achieve goals that are so beyond what your former self thought were possible that when you get there, it feels like a miracle. So the two decisions, number one is unwavering faith. Number two is extraordinary effort. Let me explain. Unwavering faith. Most people's faith is dependent on their results. If I would have let my faith in reaching 1 million people with the Miracle Morning been dependent on my results, then when I sold 13,000 copies instead of 1 million, my faith would have gone out the window. And did my faith waver? Sure, I'm human, right? But because unwavering faith is a decision, it's okay. Yes, I'm a little rattled. Yes, I'm a little nervous and doubtful. I might not be able to reach the goal, but I'm committed. I'm committed to maintain unwavering faith that I can change 1 million lives one morning at a time, and that faith will not waver. I will maintain that faith for as long as it takes, even if it's the rest of my life. And that second decision, extraordinary effort. It's I'll do at least one thing. You don't have to work 80 hours a week, but extraordinary effort is consistent effort. I will do at least one thing every day that moves me toward my outcome, my goal. And because I maintained unwavering faith that I could change 1 million lives one morning at a time, and I put forth extraordinary effort, not 1 year, but for 6 consecutive years, that's how I changed 1 million lives with the Miracle Morning. And that's what you can apply to your author journey and every goal in your life. If you commit, and you got to do it in writing, you're not going to remember unless it's in writing, I will maintain unwavering faith and put forth extraordinary effort. No matter what, there is no other option for as long as it takes. That's the miracle equation.
So good, man, so good. And like you said, it's easy to understand and way harder to fully grasp and to do it, right? Because in those dips, in those tough times, that's when you really get tested. And not many people would have the perseverance and the grit to keep going.
And just like the Miracle Morning, Chandler, what you said is so true, but just like the Miracle Morning, I held people's hands to go from I'm not a morning person to, oh my gosh, I'm a lifelong morning person. The miracle equation is the same thing. I held people's hands from going, I don't know how to maintain unwavering faith, and I'm not a disciplined person. I'm not motivated. I'm lazy. I don't know how to put forth extraordinary effort, right? And that book ends with a 30-day challenge. And the last thing I'll say is the Miracle Morning is a daily practice for personal development. The miracle equation is a daily process for goal achievement, right? So one is who you become, the other is what you do, and you combine the two, and to me, it's like, you know, how to really achieve extraordinary results in your life. That's
really cool. I love that. Well, I'm going to ask one final question, and then we're going to roll into a couple questions from the audience here. So selfpublishing.com team, I want to queue up the first question from the in-person room. And so if you guys want to have a person with a question and also a microphone, let's tee that up, and then we'll come back to that in just a second. And then if you're in the virtual room, if you want to raise your digital hand and punchy, succinct questions so we can get as many questions in here as possible. But raise your virtual hand if you've got a question. We're going to go to the in-person room first here in just a second. So let's get one person with a question and a microphone. And as soon as we've got that, I'll come back here with that cue. And then Hal, kind of my personal final question is, knowing what you know now, millions of copies sold, the whole Miracle Morning movement, if you were to zoom back to early Hal and the Hal from years ago and maybe all of the other Hals in this room, what would your advice be for people who are thinking about that going all in on their book, on their business, like thinking about making that commitment like you did? What would your advice be? What would your encouragement be?
Yeah, a couple things. One is to be flexible. The beauty of self-publishing is that you can go and you can literally edit any part of your book at any time. I've edited the Miracle Morning probably 5 times before I did the updated edition. Because I was self-published, I would go read reviews and I'd be like, oh man, I got like 5 reviews saying this part sucks. So I would just go in there and rewrite it, upload a new PDF, and then and the next day I had a new book, right? An amended book. So be flexible to make your book better. You can consistently get feedback and improve it. That's one thing. But the most important thing, it goes back to what I already said. I'm just going to re-say it, which is to decide how many lives you want to impact and start with a number that stretches you, but that inspires you. If 1 million feels so far off, and it was for me, like, you don't need to start there. Like I said, start with 10,000. Start with something substantial. And think about how many human beings ever impact 10,000 lives. Like, that's extraordinary, right? Like, you're in the top 1% in the world of human beings if your book changes 1 million lives. And so you just choose a number so you have a target. And it's not about the target or the number. It's about informing your daily behavior so that you're moving in the direction of that target. And that's it. And you just keep moving toward it. And it might take you longer than you initially intended, like it did for me. But when you finally get there, remember, the timing is always perfect and it happens exactly as it's supposed to.
So good. That's really good. Well, we're going to move into some questions from the audience. So it looks like we've got one here on the in-person. So we'll bring it to the in-person. What's your question for Hal?
So, Hal, thank you for inspiring my coach, Allison. She quotes you. And I just wondered, what one thing would you wish you hadn't been consistent in that you would have gotten rid of early on?
One thing I did that I would have not done in hindsight.
Yep.
Yeah. It was saying yes to every opportunity outside of promoting my book. Meaning, Miracle Morning, I felt like it was my life's work, but in the beginning, I didn't know that it was going to catch. So like I created a live event called Best Year Ever Blueprint, and I created a coaching program called Quantum Leap Master. Like I had all these different things I was saying yes to. And then eventually I realized, I'm distracting myself from what really matters. And I decided my mission is to change 1 million lives with the Miracle Morning. And so I'm going to say no to everything that is not in alignment with that mission. And then I started saying yes to things that were in alignment. And we created the Miracle Morning movie, a documentary that I had said no to for the first year that my friend Nick Conadera, who's a director, proposed it. I said, no, I've got 1 million other things that I'm doing. And then I went, wait a minute. This thing I'm doing doesn't reach 1 million people with the Miracle Morning. This thing doesn't reach 1 million people with the Miracle Morning. But if I were to make a documentary, then I could reach people that don't read books, but they'll watch movies, and then maybe the movie will convince them to buy a book, especially when they see Chandler Bolt saying in the movie, Chandler's featured in the movie, y'all, that the Miracle Morning changed my life. That was the day that everything changed. But y'all can watch the Miracle Morning movie for free, by the way, on YouTube. But I said yes to the movie. I said yes to the Miracle Morning app, right? The Miracle Morning app has become a huge way for people that, I got to buy the book. I got to wait a week to get right. Like I could download the app, and I saw in the chat, I saw at least a dozen of you in the chat saying that you either love the app, have renewed the app, or use the app. So it was saying yes to this book series behind me. There's a dozen books in the Miracle Morning series. So it was saying no to all the distractions. That's my answer to your question. No to the distractions and yes to the mission.
So good. We got a lot of We got a lot of
Yeah,
fans
you're
of
so
the
welcome.
movie.
And tell Allison I said hi, please, and thank you for her sharing the Miracle Morning.
All right, and let's go one more question in the in-person room. I see we got a bunch of love for the movie, and yeah,
Yes, bunch.
if you watch real closely, I mean, you blink and you'll miss it. It's my 7 seconds of fame in the Miracle Morning movie. I was like, Hal, don't edit me out. Like, at least just keep me in there a little bit. So you got to say a memorable quote to not get edited out of the
That's
movie.
it. And you made it a trailer, dude. That's the thing is you had the shortest scene in the movie, but you had the most impactful scene in the movie, dude.
But I made the trailer. All right, next question in person for Hal.
Oh, Hal, this is Jan, and I'm absolutely inspired by you. Where all the speakers we have been fantastic, but you have really inspired me on the longevity to get to where you're going. So
thank you.
I just ordered your books. When is Miracle Equation coming out?
Miracle Equation is out. That's been
It's out.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That
I
book's
didn't see it
available.
on his board. Okay, great, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's up. It's right there. You can't see it. It's up high.
Okay,
Here you go. There you go.
Awesome.
Miracle Equation is right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in the middle. Okay, let's see. Next up, let's go to, we got to start with Tony here. Tony reminds me of Hal. Tony has been in our mastermind and some of our highest level stuff for years now. It's just inspires me every week on these calls. So Tony, what's your question for Hal?
Wow, Chandler, you're making me choke up. You're making me choke up. How such respect. One question. What was the fiery, gritty feeling that got you through the car accident and overcoming cancer? Because I'm going to apply it. And thank you very much.
Yeah, brother Tony, thank you. It was finding purpose in the pain. And I learned that from my mom and dad. When I was 8 years old, my baby sister died in my mother's arms with me witnessing it. I was at home with my mom and my baby sister. I was 8 years old. She was just a year and a half old, and she died in my mother's arms. And within 6 months, my mother was leading a support group for other parents who had lost children. So when I came out of the coma at age 20 in my car accident, I asked myself, why did this happen to me? Not in a victim context, but hey, God, what am I supposed to do with this? Who am I supposed to become? What am I supposed to learn from this? And how am I supposed to use it to help other people? And that's where I got the message. I told my dad, I said, Dad, I always wanted to be a motivational speaker, but I had a pretty normal life. Other than bullying, getting bullied, you and Mom were good to me. I don't have much to talk about. Maybe that's why this car accident happened to me. Maybe I'm supposed to go through the most difficult time in my life so that I can come out on the other side a wiser, stronger, better version of myself. Then I can go speak to other people and help them through their tragedies and their challenges. When I got cancer, it was the exact same mindset. Oh, dang, I thought I already went through my adversity. I guess there's something else for me to learn. There's some other way for me to help other people. So if you can choose to find purpose in your pain, that enables you to rise above it and keep moving forward so that you can serve humanity at a higher level.
So good, so good. And Tony is totally doing that. Tony is legally blind and has been working through the process and writing and publishing his book, and just such an inspiration to all of us of whatever it takes. I'm using the dictation software. I'm getting someone to help you, like just whatever it takes. So Tony, we love you. Find purpose in the pain. And I want you to quickly speak to this, and we'll take a couple final questions and we'll wrap. You've been so generous with your time. Thank you, Hal. One of the most powerful stories that I've ever heard you tell, there's a lot of them, but it was on what you just said, which is when, that they said, hey, you're never going to be able to walk again. You're in a wheelchair, and your dad broke the news to you. And the nurses said, hey, we think he's in denial. Like, no one's ever this happy when we break news like this to them. Like, I think you need to go back in and like double down on the message that this is really bad. And then you responding and just saying, hey, I always wanted to be a speaker. Now I'm going to roll that wheelchair up there, and now I've actually got something to talk about. Like, just finding the purpose in the pain. And there's a specific mantra that you talk about that has always stuck with me. And just anytime I'm going through hard times, I come back to this, is can't change it. So can you kind of describe what that mantra is and how people can use it in their lives?
Yeah, a year and a half before my car accident, I started a career in Cutco. I started selling Cutco cutlery. And my manager, my mentor, Jesse Levine, Jesse taught us, he said, hey, you're going to encounter a lot of failure and disappointment and rejection. And he said, most people can't handle that. You need a strategy to move through it. And he taught us what was called the 5-minute rule, which he said, when something bad happens, something that you don't want to happen, it's rejection, failure, whatever. He said, set your timer for 5 minutes and give yourself 5 minutes to complain and bitch and moan and cry and vent and whatever you got to do, feel your emotions fully. But he said, when that 5-minute timer goes off and you realize, all right, it happened, I can't go back in time and change it. He said, you say 3 very liberating words. Can't change it. It's not that you can't change things moving forward. It's that whatever happened 5 minutes ago happened, and now you have a decision. You can either dwell on it and wish you could change it, wish it didn't happen. And he taught us that that's where all your emotional pain comes from. Wishing and wanting you could go back in time and 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago, wishing you could change the past. And so the can't change it mantra is a reminder, and the 5-minute timers that gives you that buffer to like feel the emotions and then, okay, it's been 5 minutes, can't change it, move on. What can I change? What can I focus on? And so when I came out of the coma, I realized I can't change that I was in a car accident. I can't change that I broke 11 bones. And if the doctors are right and I never walk again and I can't change that, I said, I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair because I'm in a wheelchair either way. Now, I also believed, I don't believe it's proof yet that I can't walk again. The doctors are guessing that. They're thinking that's the likely scenario. However, go back to that miracle equation. I'm going to maintain unwavering faith that I can walk again until proven otherwise. And if I get to the point where I definitely can't walk, well then 3 words, can't change it, I'm at peace, doesn't matter. So that's it. It's that realization that whatever you can't change, don't waste time wishing you could. Just focus your energy on what you can change from this point forward.
So good, Hal. All right, we're going to go final question to Tyler. So Tyler, you got the final question here for Hal. What's your question?
Dude, make it good, Tyler.
All right, no pressure. Okay, my question is, after your initial success in the launch of the Miracle Morning, and then there was a lull in the sales, and you said it took a long time to get going, what activities did you do to start to rack up book sales again after the fact?
Yeah. So then there's a few. I did everything, right? Like I love one of my former coaches. He used to always say, people always would ask me, what's the one thing I need to do to grow my business? And he's like, I don't know one thing, but I know 10 things, and I do all 10 of them every week, right? And I love that mantra. It's like, it's like everybody's looking for the silver bullet. But I'll give you the silver bullet, at least I think the most impactful thing that I did, and that was get on podcasts. So what I would do is I would email, it was a numbers game. I'd email 20 podcasters, over the course of a couple days, and I'd maybe hear from maybe 3, 5, 1, depending on the day. But every time I got on a podcast, something I had learned in Cutco, our business was based on referrals. So every time you did a Cutco presentation, at the end, you said, hey, can you please jot down 10 to 15 people? They don't have to buy from me. Like, you don't know who's going to buy, but just that are nice people that I could at least call and no pressure. I'll just see if they'd be open to taking a look just like you did. And we'd get 10 to 15 referrals and we'd call them. So I was like, I'm going to do the same thing for selling books. So every time I got on a podcast, at the end of the podcast, I would say, hey, thank you so much. Did that go well for you? And they go, yeah. I go, hey, would you be willing? I go, not now, but if I send you an email with a template that you can copy and paste, do you know a few other podcasters that this might be a good fit for? And they're like, yeah. And so I would send them an email so they don't have to think about it. It was written for them. And I would say, hey, I wrote a template for you below. Feel free to edit it if you want, or just copy and paste it. And if you do me a huge favor and please send this to those 5 podcasters, it would mean a ton to me. And so I started getting referrals to other podcasts. And as I got on a podcast with a slightly bigger name, I would now name drop that in the template, and then a slightly bigger name. And then finally I got on Pat Flynn's podcast, and he was a well-known podcaster. And so I was able to leverage that to get on bigger podcasts. So it was really starting with podcasts and getting on as many as I could, and starting with the least popular so I could get practice and get good at interviewing. And then I grew got in bigger and bigger and bigger podcasts. But that's the one thing that I did. I also went and responded to Amazon reviews. I did all the little things. I did every little thing that I could. And I launched my own podcast so that I could also start adding value to the people that were opting in for my book bonuses. That way I had a weekly podcast. So at least once a week, they were getting an email from me saying, hey, here's a new episode that'll help you take what you learned in the book to the next level. So launched my own podcast and got on other people's podcasts. But the other people's podcast was the biggest way I got the word out for the book.
Good. And 150 in year 1. So
yeah.
Anyone here done 150 podcasts yet? Okay. I don't see any hands. So we got
and
some
I'm
work.
over 600 now, by the way. I still do podcasts like I was a new author.
So we got some work to do. Let's go book some podcasts. Guys, has this been helpful? Have you enjoyed this session with Hal? I love it. People are lighting up the back wall. Hal, we love you, man. Thank you so much. Final question, parting piece of advice for this audience, and where can people go to find out more about you, your books, all that good stuff?
Yeah, the parting piece of advice is that we human beings, unless you're a narcissist, and I'm sure there's at least a few on the call, at the event, but for the most of us, right, we will do far more for someone else than we will for ourselves. Okay, and you can probably relate to that, right? You'll do more for your kids or for your family or for anyone you love. You'll do far more for somebody else than you will for yourself. So in order for you to overcome the self-doubt and the lack of motivation and the rejection and all of that, you got to have a mission that's bigger for yourself, bigger than yourself. And that for me, right, it was change 1 million lives one morning at a time. And one of my mantras, you can jot this one down, whenever I didn't feel like it, I didn't feel like working, I didn't feel like podcasting, I felt like giving up, my mantra was, it's not about me. It's not about me. I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing this sincerely to change 1 million lives. And yes, I'm excited about the royalties I'll earn from that, but I'm not doing it for royalties because the amount of income that I earned as a self-published author selling 1 million books, right? You can do the math. I didn't need that much money. And if I was doing it for the money, then when I sold 100,000 books, I'd probably been like, dude, I'm good. I'm going to go take some time off. But I was like, I'm only 10% of the way of my mission to serve humanity and help other people. So that's my parting advice is don't make this about you. Find a bigger mission that is about serving other people with the book that you're writing and how it can help others. That mission being your North Star, and that's big enough, or at least that when you hit one milestone, you grow it to a bigger one. Like when I reached 1 million people, I changed my mission. I changed it to 1 billion. So now I've got a long way to go. I've got 997 million people that I have to reach. You follow? So I got a mission that's bigger than any of my personal, selfish financial goals. And only because of that mission am I going to not only help the more people, but then my family benefits because I'm on mission. I'm not on it about myself.
Man, and you're 97% away from that goal.
Yeah, I'm 97% away again, dude.
Oh, all right, y'all. Give it up for Hal. You can see why this is one of the most inspiring people I've ever met. Go check out his books. Check out the Miracle Morning app. Hal, we love you, man. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
I love you, Chandler. I'm going to get over to that lake house soon, brother. Love you.
Yes, sir. I'll see you soon.